I have an objective truth for you. Disney peaked in the 2000s. Not only were they pumping out absolute banger movies, they were also producing absolute banger video games to go with these movies. At least, I remember them being bangers, but do they still hold up today? Today, I'll be looking at some of these games to see how much I still enjoy them. So, without further ado, let's look at the first game. Disney's Bolt for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii. Now, I might get flamed for this, but the Bolt movie isn't actually that great in my opinion. It's not bad by any means, but it's kind of just the exact same story as Toy Story, but they replace toys with animals.
Yeah, well, normally I'm a tad more indestructible.
I've set my laser from stun to kill.
Lucky for us, the Bolt game does not follow the story of the movie. Instead, it takes place in the action series that Bolt stars in. This makes for some genuinely fun gameplay. Throughout the game, we play as two characters, Bolt and Penny. Bolt plays as the fighter, while Penny is used more for stealth missions. Bolt is definitely a lot more fun to play as, but luckily, we primarily play as Bolt throughout the game anyway. The first level in the game is a stealth mission with Penny. It teaches us the basics of her character. She has an enhanced vision ability that makes objects you can interact with glow and points out enemies. She's also able to navigate levels using this wheel bar thing. The wheel bar can attach to ledges so she can roll across them, as well as into grooves in walls or ceilings. The wheel bar can also be used to interact with your surroundings, such as to open locks. She also has a sneak ability, letting her move past enemies without being heard. While sneaking, you can do a sneak attack, and if you don't want to sneak, she has a regular attack too. In the top right of the screen, there's this green bar. This is your energy, and it can be used for your special abilities. For Penny, she's able to turn fully invisible. Energy is also very easy to regain, as most enemies drop a lot when killed. Then there's Bolt. Bolt is kind of ridiculously powerful in this game, but not to a point where the game is too easy. He has two basic attacks, a dash attack and a heavy attack. One is faster but less powerful, and the other is slower but does more damage. He also has a grab ability, which is surprisingly fun. Upon grabbing an enemy, you can either throw them, toss them, slam them, or pile drive them. All are very fun, and at some points I start to feel bad for the enemies. The enemies take quite a beating, which certainly adds to the difficulty of this game, but in my eyes, they're just suffering by living longer and having to experience Bolt. Bolt also has way more abilities than Penny. He can do a super bark ability, which can deal a lot of damage across multiple enemies, break down certain objects, and can also be used to stun enemies, giving you a chance to catch up to them. He also has a laser eyes ability, but I didn't really find myself using it super often. It doesn't do great damage, and it's better for stunning enemies. If you thought Bolt was strong enough already, it gets even better. Once this circle on the right side of your screen fills up, you become supercharged. This means all of Bolt's abilities are supercharged, meaning they do significantly more damage and have a wider range. I think we need to talk about how strong Bolt is in this game. He's able to catch missiles with his mouth and redirect them like it's nothing. He's able to take multiple explosions from these sticky bombs at point blank range. He rides a freaking missile and disables it mid-air. Look at this! Not only is he riding a missile, but he also climbs underneath the missile without falling off, fully defying gravity. What action series are we watching right now?
Well, that just happened.
Oh right, this is an action series we're playing through. I forgot. Jokes aside, the writing is actually surprisingly good in this game, at least by video game standards. As previously mentioned, this game is not based on the story of the movie. It's based on the TV series shown in the movie. In the Bolt movie, we don't really see much of the story of the TV series, meaning the entire story was pretty much made up for this game. I honestly really like when games do that. It shows how much care is put into the game. Another thing this game does that I love a lot is that it often has two different things happening at once. Let me explain. Take this temple level for example. We play through the level first as Bolt. As Bolt, we take the attention from enemies and destroy certain parts of the landscape. Then, we play through the same level as Penny, where we see Bolt doing the things we did prior. I think that makes for some really creative levels. The level design in general is very creative. Themes alone are cool, having a temple level, a train level, these warehouse levels, just to name a few. Fun fact, I did not get very far into this game as a kid. I made it to the second level, where it teaches you how to use a super bark ability. However, I neglected to read the instructions that it gave me and came up with my own solution. That solution being that I had to kill enough of these enemies and eventually it would let me go past. I think I killed people aimlessly for at least 15 minutes before quitting and getting my older sister to help me. That brings me to my main issue with the game, the difficulty. This game offers some pretty good challenge, which I enjoy now. I even struggled a bit during my current playthrough, but to be fair, there are some parts that are kind of stupid in my opinion. Take this train level for example. We have to take out waves of enemies. Seems easy enough, right? Except that the entire time, this stupid guy keeps throwing these tracking bomb things at you, which are surprisingly difficult to avoid. Once they attach to you, that's it. You can't get them off. And he doesn't give you a break. You're supposed to use super speed to avoid them, but trying to pay attention to these devices and avoid them while also taking out waves of enemies was difficult for me. It could be that I'm just incapable of multitasking, I don't know. Thing is, this game was designed for kids. I doubt any kids under the age of 12 would have been able to beat this game. I feel like this game just struggles with its target demographic. It's aimed at children, but I think it would have been more appropriate for older kids. By the time I would have been competent enough to play this game properly, I was probably too old to care, even though I'm playing it now. However, that's kind of the only issue I have with the game. Other than that, it's a good game overall. The graphics are quite appealing and consistent, the writing is quite impressive for a video game tie-in, the controls and gameplay are all really fun, not much to hate about this game really. Overall, I'd probably rate this game an 8 out of 10. Hey, this part is unscripted, but I just watched Bolt last night, and I feel like I was being way too mean to it. It's a pretty okay movie. I don't know, it's alright. It's not as good as Toy Story, but I don't know, I was being too rude to it. It's cute. Go watch Bolt. That's your homework. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End for Xbox 360 and PS3. Wow, a pirate game. I'm gonna be honest, Sea of Thieves gets really boring really fast. Maybe this game will finally scratch that pirate game itch that I totally have. Yup. At World's End was one of those games I always had as a kid, but never played. It sat on my shelf for years untouched. I tried playing it once, couldn't get past the first level. I probably played for like 5 minutes before losing interest and never touching it again. That's not to say that the game is bad though. It's actually surprisingly well made. It's just not really designed for kids. This is also the first and probably only game in these videos that's rated T and not E. The game follows the story of 2 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, those being Dead Man's Chest and At World's End. Because this game follows 2 movies, it is long. The game begins with Jack Sparrow escaping from this prison. This escape acts as a tutorial. We can break open certain doors with these objects we find laying around, which is what we use mostly to escape this place. Pretty lousy prison if you're gonna break doors using whatever this object is. What is that? They just refer to it as an object. It's a that. That's a that. Jack has a that. This, that, huh? On the topic of lousy prison, these guards are kind of pathetic. Jack is able to fight off hordes of them like it's nothing. This is the prison system that we have, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe this is where my tax dollars are going. I am so funny. The combat's actually pretty fun, although you do tend to get swarmed a lot while fighting. Your health is indicated by this skull in the top left. You'll notice this circle the skull is inside of. If you take damage, the circle drops. I have noticed it is a trend to have really weird health bars in these old games. I didn't mention it in the last video, but in the Monsters Inc. game, this is your health bar. I played half of the entire game without knowing what it was. God, that game sucked. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. The controls are kind of weird. I guess they just don't really use buttons you'd expect to use, but you get used to it pretty quickly. A and X are your attack buttons, and B is your jump. If a circle appears under your enemy, it means they're about to hit you. In this case, you can hit one of the attack buttons and you'll parry the attack. Once this bar next to your health fills up, it means you have a finisher prepared. While fighting an enemy, when an opportunity to use your finisher arises, the game will prompt you to press the left trigger. This will perform the finisher, which is honestly kinda cool. To regain health, you pick up these hearts scattered across the ground. The combat's relatively simple and easy to get the hang of, but you feel really cool doing it. It actually feels like a proper sword fight a lot of the time. Most of the time. But hey, it's still better than the combat in Sea of Thieves. But we aren't done talking about combat, oh no. There's also one-on-one sword fights. In these fights, you can slash up, down, or do a center jab. You have to switch back and forth between these attacks to confuse your opponent, and hit them when they least expect it. And of course, they can do the same attacks on you. These circles here will prompt you when they're going to attack. If the enemy goes for an up slash, the circle on top will flash. You have to press the up button as well to block. You get the idea. These fights are cool, and the animations are really well done, but I don't really find myself paying attention to what's happening in the fight, as I'm too distracted focusing on these circles to prepare for incoming attacks. I do think I prefer the open world combat over the one-on-one combat, but you do tend to get swarmed a lot in open world combat, so. You also have a gun in the open world. I probably should have mentioned that. I almost never use it though, as you only have 3 bullets. You can find more bullets in the open world, but since 3 is the most you can carry, it's best to save the bullets for when you really need them. Now there's one last thing I think I should mention about this game, probably the most obvious thing to mention, and that's the graphics. Of all the games I've covered, none of them have particularly amazing graphics. Most of the graphics aren't bad in these games, but none of them really stand out. But this game, I was honestly incredibly impressed looking at these graphics. I don't know what it is. Maybe sometimes I forget the Xbox 360 was kind of a powerhouse, or maybe I'm just used to seeing terrible graphics in all these games, but it was a really nice surprise to see good graphics in this game. And I'm not just talking about the characters. Yes, the characters look amazing, especially for 2007, but all the backdrops look incredible too. Just about everything outdoors looks great. The detail on the brick, the rain. The only issue I have with the graphics is that some places look really gray and dull, but I've noticed that's kind of a common theme with Xbox 360 games. But the graphics really shine in the sunlit areas. No pun intended. Not only are the colors very vibrant and all pop out, but the graphics actually look very real. I'm honestly really glad that I came back to play this game over 15 years later, because it really holds up. Overall, I'd give this game an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, it's that good. And yes, we're doing decimal places now. Stitch just dabbed at me. I was gonna cover this game, Stitch Jam, for this video, but upon playing it, I think it's a little bit too simple to cover. It's a cute rhythm game, I certainly like it, just not much to talk about. Okay, whatever, I'll just talk about the Meet the Robinsons game. Okay, fine, I'll cover a different Stitch game. Stitch Experiment 626 for the PS2. Growing up, I absolutely loved Lilo and Stitch. It was, and still is, one of my favorite movies of all time. So, let's load up this game. Okay, this game has done something that no other game has ever done to me. It made me feel sick within the first minute of playing. I wish I was joking. I genuinely had to take a break within the first minute because I thought I was gonna puke. I have never felt sick playing a game my entire life. I thought it couldn't be done. This game has already surpassed my expectations in the worst way possible. Okay, whatever, I'll live. Let's just play the game. Can we go back to the DS game? One of the really big issues that I had with the Monsters Inc. game was the camera controls. I never thought I'd say this, but I think I prefer the controls in that game over this one. The camera is just so shaky and sensitive. The camera tries to follow Stitch, but doesn't really do a great job at it. You can move the camera with the right stick, but it's way too touch sensitive. It's kinda hard to describe bad controls, but you just gotta take my word for it. I swear, the camera has a mind of its own. It just does whatever it wants sometimes. If you hit the left trigger, the camera will instantly look in the direction that Stitch is looking. If you hold the button, Stitch won't change directions, and the camera will stay behind you. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to get Stitch to look in the direction you want him to. Again, really bad controls. The controls for Stitch are incredibly janky, which is a big issue for the game since it's mostly platforming. The story takes place prior to the first Lilo and Stitch movie. For some reason, Jumba sends Stitch out to collect a DNA. The entire game is basically a collect-a-thon. You go through each level, and you must collect a certain amount of DNA before being able to continue to the next area. As for how you can collect physical strands of DNA, I have no idea. But hey, Stitch also holds a ball of plasma in the first movie, so I guess anything's on the table for him. Also, this game contradicts the story of the sequel. In that movie, it shows Jumba gets arrested directly after Stitch is created, thus not giving him any time for him to go out and collect DNA, just saying. Okay, well, this game was released before the second movie. I'll give it a slide, but you're on thin ice, Stitch. Also, another side note, I love the second Stitch movie. It's nowhere near as good as the first one, but I mean, I don't know, it's simple, it's cute, the animation at least looks good, right? The movie does end with Stitch dying, though. And then he just comes back to life. They never really explain how that's possible.
But how is it possible?
It's not.
Okay, looking back, maybe that movie's not very good. Getting back on topic here, the gameplay. Stitch has a few movement options. He has a double jump and can climb up certain objects, both along walls and ceilings. His only form of attacking is his plasma gun. The gun has unlimited ammo and no cooldown, so you can just spam it as fast as possible. In fact, that's usually the only way of killing enemies, since it's impossible to aim. Just spray and pray. That's your best option. There's also these random alien things that walk around. They're not enemies, I'm not really sure what they are. You can't kill them or anything. And believe me, I tried. I don't know, I like this. It shows they put some effort into the game at least. The best way I can describe this game is rough around the edges. It just feels really rushed, and if they gave it more time, it could have actually been a really well-polished game. There's a lot of small things that happen that prove how unfinished this game is, apart from the awful controls. For example, sometimes the music will abruptly stop and Jumbo will just talk at you. or just make noises. I don't know why this happens. It's really disappointing how bad this game is, because it had so much potential. It seems like the developers did put a lot of effort in. The game has a charm to it that I really love, but no amount of charm is enough to save this game. 4 out of 10. Plenty of charm, but the gameplay is too awful to get past. Also, the music sounds like the Beastie Boys. The music is actually really good though.